Exploration. Exploration is mankind's greatest achievement. We've explored and set up outposts practically everywhere in the world, from hot deserts to frigid glaciers, to the highest mountain to the lowest parts in the oceans. Well, more submarines than outposts in the lowest part of the oceans, but you get the point. We explore, and before traveling further, set up equipment that will help us make ourselves ready for journeys further into the unknown. What we set up allows us to train for new environments, gather new resources, and make it more cost effective to go on. And what is left to explore in bulk? Space. To explore and colonize space would truly be mankind's crowning achievement. To do this, we need to make ourselves ready to survive in harsh environments. We will need to gather new resources from other places than our planet. To do this, we will need to set up outposts that make it easier and more cost-effective to launch missions further into space. And the most logical place to start would be the closest place away from Earth's orbit, or at least the deep part of Earth's gravity well, which in this case is the moon. But with the president's new policy, he would have us on a fool's errand to Mars before the moon, claiming that since we've already been to the moon, there's no reason to go back. But the reasons to go back are clear. And the arguments against going back are at best straw man fallacies. First of all, let's look at what we could learn by going to the moon before Mars. By creating a moon base, we would learn how to survive on a solid object with very little atmosphere. And since the moon has almost no atmosphere, meteorites hit the surface more frequently than on Earth, due to the fact they aren't burned up before impact. By first going to the moon, we'd be able to figure out what kind of shelter we need to build against meteorites, extreme weather, well, not weather, but extreme temperatures, radiation, and cosmic rays. We'd be able to figure out our life support systems, such as recycling water and oxygen. And since the moon is only 3 days away from the Earth, as opposed to a year to 2 years away, such as Mars, if the crew were to get into an accident or something went wrong, the survivability would be much higher if they were on the moon as opposed to Mars. It would be much faster and more cost efficient to save the crew on the moon as opposed to Mars. Imagine driving for 3 hours to get to a different town. Imagine the gas money and the food and the snacks that you have to get along the way. And now, put that aside and imagine driving instead for 45 days straight, and the gas and food and drink and snacks that it would cost along the way. Well, the difference between 3 hours and 45 days straight is the equivalent difference that it takes from getting to the moon to Mars. The estimated cost to travel to the moon is 100 million at the lowest. The estimated cost to go to Mars is hundreds of billions. It's plain to see how much more cost effective it would be to build a base on the moon first, even though it would take billions to build a base on the moon. Once we did that, and we were set up, we would be less likely to encounter problems while we go to Mars, saving us money in the long run. Scientists believe the moon has materials such as cobalt and liquid oxygen, which would help us so that we wouldn't have to keep transporting materials from Earth. And like the early explorers of the United States, as they set up outposts to rest and gather materials, so too could we, the early explorers of space. Some think that going to the moon is old news, and that we would waste money and time by going back. But this was not so. President Obama said this: "But I just have to say pretty bluntly here, we've already been there before. Buzz has been there, and there's a lot more space to explore and a lot more to learn when we do. This reason is a fallacy. The President merely states that we've already done so, so why bother going back? The President does not address the issues of what is to gain from going back, or the arguments against." Another argument for not going back is that it's beyond NASA's budget and will take too long. The proposed time to go back is 2020 for a manned mission to the moon. The amount of money the President is giving, the proposed time to go back to Mars for a flyby and not even land is the mid-2030s. What takes longer? The budget, on the other hand, that was given to NASA by the President is more in the new plan than it was in the old plan. But it only allows NASA to oversee what private companies will launch from NASA's site. In my opinion, the President's new plan is nothing more than a roundabout way to waste time, making it seem like we're going ahead, but instead we're just on a carousel. But if this isn't so, and the President does wish to explore deeper space, without first exploring the moon and setting up a base, then this surely is a fool's errand. For us to go deeper into space first, without setting up a base and research and resources, will make us learn from our failures and waste more money the hard way. And this information is not to scare you away from agreeing with the President's plan. This is merely the facts. Of course, we expect to lose lives on our explorations of space, lives and equipment, but we would lose far less if we were prepared for what's ahead than if we just jumped blindly in as the President would have us do. I urge you to think about the long term as opposed to the short term of space travel, so that we will be ready to proceed and go on after we've prepared, just as the settlers of Earth's new worlds before us.